Polish soldiers in 1942 raised Wojtek the Bear, who carried artillery crates at Monte Cassino. On April 8, 1945, the B-17G Wee Willie broke apart after a fatal flak hit, leaving only the pilot alive. Near Kiev in 1941, a Soviet officer raised his pistol and led a charge in the moment later called combat. On July 22, 1944, an A-20 Havoc bombing run in Papua was captured in 4 frames of panic and survival. At Tali Ihantala in 1944, Finnish soldiers walked past a burning Soviet tank after holding the line. In Kingston upon Thames in 1941, a mother and child joined a tear gas drill meant to prepare civilians for chemical attack. In Tunisia, a mobile gun crew waited in a half-track beside a 105mm howitzer ready to fire across the desert. Under camouflage netting in North Africa, an American gun crew fired on German positions beyond a ridge. In 1943, a 20 bombers skimmed the Tunisian desert in tight formation before striking German positions. A truck crew in a rocky valley covered an ammunition dump stacked with 105mm shells. On September 18, 1944, a white phosphorus burst filled a Brest street as U.S. troops charged a strongpoint. In Montéglise, on August 10, 1944, GIs gathered around a battered piano and sang through a brief break in fighting. On August 23, 1944, C-47s dropped thousands of parachutes between Nice and Marseille to liberate southern France. On July 21, 1944, GIs dashed between hedgerows near Perrier while tanks waited hidden in the bocage. On Christmas Eve 1944 at Tinian, Seabees prayed quietly inside a canvas chapel. An assault team pushed a rubber boat into a river in 1945 to reach the Rhineland under enemy fire. In 1943, Marines on a South Pacific troopship staged a mock spar in their tan peanut suits. On March 2, 1945, Marines of the 4th Division ran across Iwo Jima's black sand under fire. In London on July 30, 1944, a soldier carried young Barbara James from the ruins of her bombed home. Early 1945 in the Ardennes, a recon trooper fed a machine gun belt into a frozen .30 caliber weapon. In September 1942, near El Alamein, a German patrol climbed a dune through a scorching desert wind. On June 14, 1940, a British soldier prayed in a London cathedral as Paris fell to German forces. On November 20, 1943, the 165th Infantry waded toward Butaritari through surf and gunfire. In the Ardennes, in winter 1945, 2 infantrymen ran through a muddy lane as shells hit the trees. On Iwo Jima in 1945, Black Marines posed with rifles after fighting from segregated ranks. In Stalingrad during the winter of 1942-43, Soviet infantry fought room by room across a shattered block. On July 4, 1944, Marine Raymond Hubert rested on an unexploded 16-inch shell during island fighting. In May 1940 at Dunkirk, stranded Allied troops crowded the beaches as Operation Dynamo began. On December 7, 1941, Japan attacked Pearl Harbor, sinking ships and killing thousands. With men at the front, women filled factories, tool lines, and newsrooms throughout World War II. In 1942, Gabriel Ben-Zur photographed Tuskegee cadets training to become America's first black combat pilots. In April 1943, fighters in the Warsaw Ghetto held out nearly 4 weeks before the uprising was crushed. On June 6, 1944, U.S. soldiers splashed into Normandy surf as Coast Guardsmen photographed the landing. On January 27, 1945, Soviet troops liberated Auschwitz and aided survivors at the camp gates. Joe Rosenthal captured Marines raising the flag on Mount Suribachi during the Iwo Jima battle. On August 6, 1945, the Enola Gay dropped the atomic bomb on Hiroshima, killing tens of thousands instantly. On March 27, 1945, USS LSMR-190 fired rockets at Tokishishima before later sinking off Okinawa. On February 23, 1945, U.S. troops advanced past Manila's General Post Office toward Intramuros. On August 4, 1944, an Avro Lancaster bombed oil tanks at Baekdambe in a daylight strike. In August 1944, Parisians celebrated liberation as armored columns rolled through the streets. In Tunisia in 1943, U.S. tank destroyer crews sheltered under sand cliffs as Stukas dived overhead. In Tunisia in 1943, American infantry ran toward the smoke at Sened to attack German trenches. In Tunisia in 1943, a wounded German prisoner lay quiet on sand awaiting evacuation. Mass rallies at Nuremberg displayed Nazi power before the city later hosted the war crimes trials. At Auschwitz, new arrivals were selected for labor or death under the gate reading Arbeit macht frei. In July 1943 at Kursk, German and Soviet tanks clashed in the war's largest armored battle. During the Battle of Britain in 1940, a Spitfire slipped past a damaged Heinkel bomber. In June 1941, German forces launched Operation Barbarossa across the Soviet border. In 1942, at El Alamein, British troops captured a surrendering panzer crewman on a desert ridge. In Stalingrad in 1942, a German soldier watched over a city collapsing in smoke and rubble. On June 25, 1940, France fell after German armor bypassed defenses and reached Paris. Hiroshima was flattened by an atomic bomb, leaving survivors with lasting injuries and radiation. After World War II ended, a sailor kissed a nurse in Times Square in a moment of relief. A German soldier shared bread with a Russian child on a winter front line. Red Army soldiers fired rifles skyward to repel low enemy aircraft over a village. In 1945, near Fornovo, German soldiers surrendered in the thousands to the Brazilian Expeditionary Force. During the Blitz, F-crews and control rooms held the line as bombs fell across Britain. In September 1940, 2 London children walked past rubble after a night raid. On June 6, 1944, wounded infantry waited on Omaha Beach for evacuation to Colleville-sur-Mer. Near the Marianas in June 1944, USS Kitkan Bay shot down a diving Japanese attacker. A father and daughter ate rice among the ruins of Singapore in February 1942 as war erased normal life. A 5-year-old boy ran to his father on a wartime train platform as a final goodbye approached. A German prisoner returned to Frankfurt in 1946 to find his home and family lost in the rubble. In Stalingrad in 1942-43, Soviet troops fought through burning streets in one of history's deadliest battles. A Warsaw home for disabled children fell silent after bombing reduced it to broken beds and toys. Millions fled World War II, carrying only what they could as families crossed Europe in uncertainty. In the Kremlin in June 1941, Stalin learned that Germany had launched Operation Barbarossa. Ira Hayes carried the weight of Iwo Jima long after becoming a national hero. In the Egyptian desert, a British soldier honored a fallen comrade at a grave marked by former enemies. In Nanjing in 1937, Japanese forces carried out mass executions of civilians and prisoners. In 1944, at Auschwitz-Birkenau, arriving families faced separation and near certain death. Czesława Kwoka, deported to Auschwitz in 1942, was photographed bruised shortly before her killing. Roger Godfrey survived the Oradour-sur-Glane massacre of June 10, 1944, which destroyed an entire village. On December 7, 1941, 2 women at Pearl Harbor saw incoming planes moments before the attack began. A liberated 18-year-old Russian girl at Dachau stared blankly after years of abuse and starvation. In 1966, a legless Soviet veteran rested on a homemade board beside an eternal flame. On May 7, 1945, gunfire at Dam Square turned Dutch celebrations into tragedy. American doctors treated wounded enemy soldiers, showing medical duty even in wartime. Prison camps across nations starved inmates through forced labor, disease, and extreme conditions. Families fled shattered cities with wheelbarrows and prams as bombs continued to fall. Alfred Czech, age 12, earned the Iron Cross after rescuing wounded soldiers under fire. Christina Skarbek survived missions across Europe before dying forgotten in London in 1952. Concentration camp prisoners faced harsh selections that split families on arrival. In Saipan in 1944, Marines watched a soldier collapse under stress and heat. Lepa Radic was hanged on February 8, 1943, after refusing to betray her comrades. Witold Pilecki entered Auschwitz to expose its crimes and was executed in 1948 after the war. A British soldier prayed alone in a war-emptied church as conflict continued around him. On May 8, 1945, U.S. troops in Okinawa heard of victory in Europe while their own battle raged on. A German soldier freed after 12 years in Soviet captivity reunited with his long-lost son. In Voronezh in July 1942, a Soviet commissar led his troops moments before being killed. British children in 1941 trained with gas masks during fears of chemical attacks. After the war, German women cleared rubble in cities like Berlin under armed supervision. In Vienna in 1947, a mother held a photo of her missing son while seeking answers. The Battle of Okinawa in 1945 left soldiers with hollow eyes after months of relentless fighting. During the Bataan Death March in April 1942, thousands died during the forced trek in extreme heat. Amid London's Blitz, soldiers carried injured children from crushed homes. In 1942, a Soviet soldier fed a trembling girl among the ruins. German troops outside Leningrad froze and starved as winter became the deadliest threat. At Omaha Beach, wounded American soldiers received first aid on the sand they had just stormed. As Germans advanced in 1941, the Red Army burned villages and crops to slow them. Wounded veterans returned home carrying visible and hidden injuries from years of war. In Hiroshima on August 6, 1945, the atomic bomb reduced the city to ruins and killed tens of thousands. Shoichi Yokoi lived hidden in Guam's jungle for nearly 30 years until his 1972 discovery. Janusz Korczak stayed with his orphans to their deaths at Treblinka in August 1942. Hans-Georg Henke, age 16, was photographed crying after his capture in Germany's final days. Near Moscow in December 1941, an elderly woman embraced a young Soviet soldier during a brief moment of hope. During the Blitz, rescuers saved puppies from rubble as families clung to their animals. A German soldier resting in the Caucasus in 1943 showed exhaustion from brutal terrain and shortages. In Iwo Jima in 1945, a soldier read a letter that connected him to home. In January 1944, a Japanese prisoner surrendered in the Marshall Islands under tense conditions. Occupied Dutch villagers knelt in prayer as a quiet act of resistance. Civil disobedience in 1941 grew as people reacted to early deportations. In Okinawa, Colonel Francis Fenton knelt over the coffin of his son, who died beside him in battle. A U.S. Marine offered a cigarette to a trapped Japanese soldier on Iwo Jima in 1945, while another watched for danger. Finland's Corporal Jaakko Ritaniemi stood beside a 75K/40 gun during the Continuation War after destroying 22 Soviet tanks.